my personal opinion about President Trump aside, he clearly really likes the royal family. Like, I think it's kind of not a secret that he has a lot of respect for
I
them.
hesitate to say it is their trump card.
I'm
sorry about that, everyone. Quite a few babies are born in prison, and it's not just to make sure that the kids are okay. It's also about supporting the mothers so that they don't reoffend. It's interesting, Kate seemed to show a bit of frustration, actually, that something hadn't been done to prevent them getting to that point. She does say, I find it so frustrating that you have to reach this crisis point.
But there's not enough preventative methods to stop this.
Exactly that. And then so going back to the whole premise of her foundation for early childhood, it is about trying to stop people ending up in these situations in the first place.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of a Right Roll podcast with me, Andrea.
And me, Emmy.
We're bringing you an earlier episode than usual because it's the half-term holiday next week, and so the Royals
And you.
and I are taking a bit of a break.
But a lot has already happened since our latest episode, so we can't wait to get you up to speed.
Yes, we've been covering the Invictus Games. Hello has been on the ground for all of the latest news from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Catherine's been to prison.
Wait, what?
Well, Catherine's visited prison. And it's awards season here in the UK. But will we see the Prince and Princess of Wales on the red carpet?
Spoiler alert, nope.
And gosh, there's so much more. Shall we welcome our lovely royal editor, Emmy Nash, and get things started?
Let's do it.
Welcome, Emily.
Hello.
Hi.
I mean, where to start? It's only been 5 days since our last episode was out, but there's just so much to talk about already.
I think I'll just bring my sleeping bag. Move in.
Set up shop, the producers will love it.
Shall we start with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Because they have been out every single day since last Friday. They are in Canada, Vancouver, for the Invictus Games. We have our lovely colleague who has been with them every step of the way, Rebecca Lewis. What do you think about their trip so far? I was going to call it a tour, but it's not really a tour.
It's not a tour.
A trip.
I mean, from looking at it from a distance, it has all the elements you'd expect for the Invictus Games. A lot of fun larking around, Harry getting involved in trying sports, Meghan cheering him on, a bit of winter fashion, which is new for the Invictus Games.
I did say that last episode.
Yeah, you said you're looking forward to that.
Exactly.
Yes.
We can get onto that in a second. But it's been really interesting, seeing the reception for them. We've talked on here recently about the difficult coverage they've experienced. And I think that when you look at Invictus, this is really them getting back to nuts and bolts, if you like. It's what Harry does best. It's probably the best thing he's ever done. At the risk of sounding like a broken record.
No, I agree, because this is where he thrives, isn't it?
100%.
Let's be honest. It's like that no one begrudges that Harry really has... this is like a really impressive accomplishment.
Yeah,
it's for wounded and injured veterans. It's just an amazing cause. So I feel like, maybe any, dare I say, eye rolling that might be reserved for jam making and Netflix documentaries sort of takes a backseat step. For this thing. It's widely respected,
and it is his baby. And I think it's really interesting, by the time you're listening to this or watching it, Meghan will be back in California. She's gone out for the initial part of it, but he's going to see it through right to the end. And I think that's interesting in itself. Obviously they don't want to leave the kids for longer than a few days at a time, but I think she is there very much supporting him. It's not her gig, but she wants to show as much love for it as she can. And, there's no question that it gets more eyes on it when they're there together.
Now, they have travelling media with them. They have media from the US, obviously us as well. All their movements kind of have been reported. They've, we've known kind of what they've done mostly every day. They've had lovely, couple dinners with Michael Bublé and his wife. Two actually dinners. And we've seen kind of everything they've been up to. They have had events, though, that have been closed to media. And now that is something quite new, isn't it?
It is and it isn't. I think that it's such an intense event that they are spending time with competitors they're getting involved in things behind the scenes, and sometimes they need to have a bit of pressure taken off because it's a lot. If you think about all the people you're chatting to, and you kind of want to give your best self to the individuals rather than be conscious constantly of the press. It'll be interesting to see whether anything emerges down the line, an interview, a TV interview, something like that. And of course, Meghan's been filming stuff for her Instagram. So I'm curious to hear your latest take on the development of
So she's
Meghan.
debuted like her, stories for the first time. She's been on it. And actually, I spoke to someone at the beginning of the week and they were like, oh no, she's not doing the content. Yes, she is, because you can actually see photos of her with her phone recording. And we've seen videos, obviously, from our colleague who's there and has Meghan literally in front of her recording and, keeping tabs on everything that's going on. So I find that quite nice. I liked it.
I think that's definitely what she's doing with Instagram, isn't it? It's like, it's very sort of like raw and unrehearsed, and like, this is me in the moment kind of thing. Like from what she's posted so far, that very much seems to be the vibe.
She's basically doing what we'd be doing. If we were there.
Literally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And with a bit better access.
Yes. No, I find it great. And also you say, the kids are not there, but they've been pretty much on their mind all the time because they cannot stop talking about them.
Can I just say, I'm not remotely surprised the kids aren't there, but I'm a bit disappointed that they're not there.
They're so young.
Yeah, but I'm just curious. Are we all?
Yeah, but it goes back to what we were just saying. It's quite an intensive event for them. There are so many events. It's quite a schedule that they have to keep up with, and a lot of going back and forth in vehicles, and actually to take young kids and put them in that mix would really complicate matters.
Yeah.
So I think maybe in years to come they'll be there.
And they've been incredibly private about the kids. The kids have been like, there's been glimpses but not really for years. So it's like, what are the chances? There isn't any, really, is there, that they're going to be put in an environment where it's all eyes on them and all cameras on them? It's just,
the days are very long though. I mean, when I wake up in the UK, Rebecca, who is in Vancouver, is still talking to me. She still hasn't gone to sleep, and she's waking up. She's getting buses at 7 a.m. Obviously, that's different to the Duke and Duchess, but they're very long days.
I
know
from experience.
From experience,
but it's such an uplifting event. It's a brilliant one to cover, and you can really get behind the individuals taking part. But I think to your point about them talking about Archie and Lilibet, but Archie in particular, there was a really lovely interview with CTV with a Canadian anchor, in which Harry was asked about how you communicate to children about amputees and veterans, and something he's talked about quite a lot over the years. And I think what Invictus does so well, and I found this with my own kids, is that it shows people are able to compete and do all kinds of incredible things despite their injuries, much as the Paralympics does. And he said that this had led to an extraordinary conversation with Archie about Princess Diana. And he'd obviously talked about people losing limbs. And then they got onto the topic of landmines and the work that she did around that. And he said that Archie was then asking to see photographs and footage. So it was really interesting how that's kind of come full circle. But it's clear that those kids are having conversations that your average 5-year-old might not be having around the UK.
It reminds me of Prince William and his, what he's told us about his conversations with the children as well. Obviously, the one that sticks in my mind particularly is like I think they passed a homeless person. Exactly. He was like, why do you think that person's there? What do you think that, and had conversation with his children. Obviously, it's something, it's funny because they're on different continents, but it's clearly something that has been drilled into them growing up, that it's so important to have
and very
their
much
children
part of their
aware.
mother's legacy,
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like they're both sort of honouring their mother in a really similar way, and
their parenting style is very similar.
Of course, because they had that shared experience themselves, so they have a mutual let's say cynicism towards the media, although they express it in very different ways. And
Prince William's just spraying them with water.
But they both really understand what it is like to grow up in the spotlight and the pressures that brings, not only on you, but on your partner, on your children. And they have a real awareness of how they want things to be different for the next generation.
They really, really do. But it's been a great week for Harry as well, because not only has he had? I know.
Great news.
I just, I
love that segue.
Anything, thank you. Anything involving law and order, I get. I'm like really into it. So There was a bit of a chat about whether Harry's visa would be in a little bit of trouble, but President Trump has come out with a somewhat bittersweet.
Bit of a zinger, really.
It was such
brutal.
It was
quite
such a
the statement.
smackdown. It was, so he came in with quite a mean statement, actually,
Very
and
mean.
I'm just going to repeat it. I don't share the. I'm doing a disclaimer, but he said something along the lines of, Harry's got enough to worry about with his wife.
Yes.
His terrible.
His terrible
he said
wife.
his wife who is terrible.
Oh, but then they're not pals, are they? They're not mutual
They're not
friends.
pals, and
those-
she probably has quite strong feelings
Yeah.
in return.
I can imagine.
Who
yeah.
knows? So, yeah, look, it was not the kindest thing to say, but as you say, a bit of relief perhaps for Harry. And we talked about this last week, didn't we? And we said that, is he really going to get involved in this?
No.
I don't
It
think
would have
so.
been very petty.
It would have been
Very
petty,
petty.
but then again, if you are going to the lengths he's going to when it comes to immigration and citizenship, then I guess you have to practice what you preach. You can't make exceptions for people. All that said, it is an interesting one, and I know we're going to talk more about this in a moment, but I think it really says a lot about the president's relationship with the royal family as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Because
he's
he
clearly doing
loves
it out of
them.
respect for Charles.
Do you
Because,
think?
well, yeah, because it's been said, and we know that King Charles and his son, want to win over the president. It's been quite a difficult time of relationships between the government here and President Trump. And I mean, that would be upsetting, I think.
I think it's unnecessary. And the interesting thing, as you say, is that William and the King really are perhaps one of the greatest hopes for UK diplomacy at the moment when it comes to America. Because we've had, and it's been written about in the papers today, we have had some issues in the relationship, as you say, like debates over the Chagos Islands and potential trade wars and all of these things that are going on. And what the King and William are able to do is sort of rise above all that and just maintain the channels of friendship and sort of smooth the way for everything else. So there's no reason why the president would want to upset that apple cart.
Absolutely.
And it's not a question of them saying, oh God, keep him in America. May or may not be the case. It's more about, having some respect, I think, as you say as well. It would be humiliating.
I'm absolutely with you. And my personal opinion about President Trump aside, he clearly really likes the royal family. I think it's kind of not a secret that he has a lot of respect for
I
them.
hesitate to say it is their trump card.
Oh, but you said
I'm
it.
sorry about that, everyone. But it's true, and we talked about this so many times in the past, but the royal family has that stability and continuity that governments don't have, that politicians don't have, because their tenure's never going to be as long.
It's really my argument when people say they're not fans of the royal family, because and I get really into it and I get really passionate about it.
You've
because it's
changed.
I know, really, I've drank the Kool-Aid, guys. We've done quite a few episodes. We've done a few series of this, but it's they really are a diplomatic force.
Yeah.
And I don't think it can be underestimated at all. Yeah.
No.
I've loved reading today, actually, that Trump, after he left the last term, the government went into Biden and they were just,
US politics podcast.
well, I read this piece today, but I
Around
found it very
royal
interesting.
politics.
What I'm
Let's get
getting
Rory
to-
Stewart on.
I'm not very good with politics, but what I want to get to is that Charles maintained the relationship with President Trump.
As he has, I think, as generally monarchs do with former presidents.
Sending him and Melania, letters through the years, which they greatly apparently appreciated. I
Yeah.
just love that.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he is.
Because he's learned from the best.
He has. It's what the Queen used to do. I mean, she got through a lot of US presidents, and she stayed in touch with them all, and that's what you do. And I think, the
really
King,
surprising
the
to
King
me.
is a
Yeah.
prolific writer of letters, as we know.
We do.
And so, absolutely, and we know, for example, that he wrote to congratulate him on winning a second term. We also know that he reached out to him after the assassination attempt. And they're examples of what we know about. So, and I think, again, this goes beyond politics. We don't know, rightly, what the monarch really subscribes to, what he believes in. But what we do know about him is that he is a very, very he's well respected and he's been around for a long time, you know, and this is another benefit that comes with having had such a long apprenticeship for the top job, is that he's got to know these people and he's got to know, and as you say, he learned from his mother, and I'm sure William is taking notes.
Yes.
You know, working out his best handwriting, the left hand.
I don't think, and this is pure speculation, so I apologise, but I get the impression that Prince William is not Trump's #1 fan, but he's still there shaking hands. And
You don't know for
I
sure.
don't know for sure.
And that's
I didn't get that.
No,
their
did you
meeting was supposed to be a very
was
brief
very
one
warm.
in France, and it overran 40 minutes. So you're not with someone for 40 minutes if you don't like them.
This is why I thought it's all coming back to me now, though. When we talked about the body language of the handshake in one of our previous episodes, and it seemed like there was a little bit of battle for power.
I just think, President Trump is possibly not the best with royal protocol. I mean, we know that from last time he visited, we know, with the late Queen and walk in front of her.
Oh, no,
but
that wasn't a breach of protocol.
Well, it's not commonly done.
It is. It absolutely is. No, that's
Teachers.
100% standard. So when a visiting head of state comes, they go first because they are inspecting the guard.
Oh, there was a whole thing at the time, like, oh my God, he's
Never believe a story that says breach of protocol in it, because chances
but they
are
are
it's
good
not.
stories.
Good point.
Emily does not like those stories.
I do not like a breach of protocol story because it usually means there's no breach of protocol.
Yeah, I've got you.
But anyway, no, but I do know what you mean. Is a slightly different way of doing things, and he's
more chilled.
He's more direct, perhaps.
Yeah.
It was interesting though. 40 minutes, as you say, out in Paris. And my understanding is that William is very keen to step in and help out when required. You know, he's not going to play a political role. He can't.
Yeah.
Neither can the king. Although one thing I will say that I spotted this week and I'm really intrigued by is that given the very difficult state of play in the Middle East at the moment, we had King Hussein of Jordan at the White House this week for talks with President Trump. This has gone very political, hasn't it? Over the situation in Israel and Gaza. He was in the White House just a few days after calling in to see the King at Windsor. And I find that intriguing because the King is almost like a kind of linchpin for people who are calling on him for whatever reason, but he's in contact with so many people. And I think in that way, he's able to have a quiet influence, not on politics per se, but on relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that's really so valuable to the UK.
Now let's jazz things up a bit.
Can we
glamour.
Can we ban the word Trump for the rest of the year?
I want to go back to last week because it ended with a high, really, for King Charles, because he had the most glam party attended by the Beckhams.
By the Beckhams, by Donatella Versace.
Helen Mirren, David.
Helen Mirren, I know.
She looks stunning.
She did look incredible. Yeah, so it was a really, really lovely event. By all accounts, I sadly wasn't invited.
You couldn't have made it. Friday's not a good day for us anyway.
It's not a good day for me. You know, it's very late to be eating all of those things. No, this was a dinner at Highgrove to celebrate the slow food and slow fashion movements. Now, you'll know, I'm sure, that King Charles has long been a proponent of sustainable food, farming and fashion. Yeah. And this was a way of celebrating all that with one eye on the fact that they are going to Italy for this state visit in April. And so you had some big names there. Stanley Tucci, the Hollywood actor, he's American-Italian, and known for his food. Food program.
Married to Emily Blunt's
Italian.
Sister.
Exactly.
No.
So he was there. He kind of curated this menu, and he gave a speech. And it was just a really lovely moment, I think. And what was nice beforehand is that they had a reception where they had graduates and students taking part in courses run by the King's Foundation at Highgrove, demonstrating the kind of work they're doing. So there are people learning millinery in partnership with Chanel. There are people, making clothes, carving, stone, wood, all of these traditional
like
crafts.
King Charles's favourite thing on earth.
It could not be more up his street
if
it tried. And he looked so happy to be there.
He looked really good. He looked really smart.
He did. Yeah. And it was great seing the Queen having a chat at David Beckham about their chickens. You know, I feel this is a recurring theme for us. We need a chickens episode. I feel like no one's anyone unless they're keeping chickens.
Literally, or bees.
We need an episode about all the hobbies that David Beckham has picked up so that he has something in common with the royal family. Because that'll be a long episode.
It will, but fair play to him because it's a charity. I've seen the work of the King's Foundation. It is brilliant, and it's supporting some really talented young people who might not otherwise get the opportunities they're getting. And to have a big name like him, really it gives it the spotlight. I mean, we probably wouldn't be talking about it now.
Now, moving it to this week, I have a question. Is the King really having a sleepover party?
And are we invited?
Yes.
That's why you've worn your pajamas.
Is he having a sleepover party?
He is having a sleepover, but he wouldn't call it a sleepover, Andrea. So, there's been a lot of discussion about this. Isn't kind of like exactly. Kids' tea followed by no, so this is something he does regularly at Windsor. He has a sort of dine and stay thing. So over the years, and the late Queen used to do this all the time, she'd gather together. I mean, you're the Queen or King, right? It's your dream. Invite who you want to come for dinner. They're going to come. Mm-hmm. And no one's going to turn you down, are they?
I mean, I wouldn't.
No, exactly. So, they used to assemble, certainly for the Queen, she'd have all manner of people like eminent doctors, scientists, people with interesting stories to tell, sometimes celebrities, but quite often people you wouldn't necessarily have heard of, but who've done something really interesting. And that's got to be one of the best perks, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Of having that role. And so the King is doing likewise. But this particular dinner, which will happen before this episode airs, is involving politicians. So politicians from across different parties and including the devolved leaders. So from Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Although, of course, there's a big question mark over whether Sinn Féin will turn up, whether they'll sleep over, whether they'll bring an overnight bag.
Yeah.
So we shall wait and see. But this is something that goes on. It's not unusual. I've not heard it referred to as a sleepover before.
That's just me, making it a bit more fun. Now, shall we move on to our favourite subject, the Princess of Wales? Now, she has been out again this week, and very interesting outing. She visited a jail.
She did. I'm really trying hard to resist another joke about your stripy shirt.
Oh, God. It's terrible.
It's great.
Those watching on YouTube, we need to have a chat from now on the day before because we are not coordinated. There's a lot of clashing going on. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I'm not going to jail you for it. No, the Princess of Wales was in HMP Style, I think it's pronounced Style, in Cheshire. And this is a women's prison. It's one of the biggest in the UK. And this was the latest outing for her in relation to her early childhood work. So I've been writing about it today, and it's actually really fascinating. Not many people realise that quite a few babies are born in prison. Live there till they're 18 months old. And this was really about shining a light on the provision for them and for mothers. And it's not just to make sure that the kids are okay and that they are following, the development that they should be. It's also about supporting the mothers so that they don't reoffend. And obviously, because of the nature of a prison visit, security is extremely tight. We didn't see as many images as we might have. But reading some of the words from the people she met, I found extremely emotional. You don't know exactly why they're there, but they obviously were vulnerable. And it's interesting, Kate seemed to show a bit of frustration, actually, that something hadn't been done to prevent them getting to that point. She does say, I find it so frustrating that you have to reach this crisis point. Because actually within the system, they are getting support. They have really good, in these prisons with help from her charity Action for Children, they're able to provide nurseries. The children are taken outside on walks, they're taken shopping, they're taken on the bus. So they get regular experiences. And they're also encouraged to build relationships with family members if that's possible.
But there's not enough preventative methods to stop this.
Exactly that. And then so going back to the whole premise of her foundation for early childhood, it is about trying to stop people ending up in these situations in the first place. So I think it's really interesting and gritty, Going back to our discussion of last week, there was a brown outfit. We don't even need to go into details just yet. Yeah. But this, for me, was really quite striking that she's going in and doing this work. It's, I think, the fourth time she's been into a women's prison. And it's something that really stopped me in my tracks, I think, just thinking about how hard it must be to be behind bars and bringing up a baby.
Yeah.
Now, talking about engagements, this was not surprising to me because she hasn't really confirmed that she's back full royal duties have not resumed.
Yeah.
She is doing what she wants, I think, and what is important to her. So the BAFTAs are coming up, and that is basically the Oscars in the UK. And we are usually, we usually have the royals. Obviously, last year, Catherine missed, the event because she had just had an operation, and she was diagnosed, obviously, as we know, with cancer. William went on his own. William hasn't gone every year. So this year, I actually expected him to go, not, the princess. But now it turns out none of them are going. What do you make of this?
So it's interesting, isn't it? He's president of BAFTA. On the whole, you'd expect him to go. I think people are giving him a bit of leeway after everything that's happened. The key thing to note here is that it's half term.
Yeah.
And that is kind of sacrosanct for the Waleses.
Yeah.
That is family time. It's almost ring fenced as far as I can understand it.
Yeah.
And they have plans, presumably. Who knows? Maybe they're going on holiday somewhere. It is not something they're going to do every year. And they've set that precedent before by him not attending in previous years. So it's not such a shock that he's not going. But what do you make of it as film and TV editor?
Well, I was at the BAFTAs last year, so I was there when behind a pen when William came in on his own, and it was really odd because like the whole room just went silent.
Yeah,
and it was just like, it must be very odd being Prince William. Yeah, just like very like, just carry on talking, But I remember he got a little bit of criticism because he hadn't watched everything, and the issue being that he's the president of BAFTA, so he should have. And obviously, the argument there is he had an awful lot on his plate.
We didn't know about it at the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly, and he wasn't able to because they were dealing with this sort of family crisis. I think, is it fair to say?
Yeah.
So I guess my perspective of it would be that he would be coming back this year strong, prepared, proving that he should be the president of BAFTA because it was being questioned last year. And instead he's just missing it. And I understand your reasons for that he's just missing it. And it's not a done deal that he goes every year. But I feel like with the flack of last year, it actually did surprise me that he's not going. I'm not going to lie.
I think the only reason why he wouldn't go, and this is just me, and my thinking, is that they're going away on a family holiday. And let's not forget that it's just been Carol's 70th birthday, and they have in the past gone out and celebrated with her, because it does not make sense if he's going to be in Sandringham to not get a little helicopter, pop into London, do your thing, and go back home.
I'll go for him if he likes.
Exactly.
I'm free.
It's on the first weekend from the half term. So obviously half term starts this weekend on Friday. So it's not that big a deal. I think they're probably taking a family holiday. They're not going to be anywhere near London. And that to me is the only reason why he would not go.
Mm-hmm.
But shouldn't they say that then?
Well, no, because they don't discuss their private family time.
Certainly not in
ever. Advance.
No.
Never. Yeah.
No.
And if we hear about a holiday, it's because possibly later this year at Christmas, they'll release a postcard or, showing a photo taken earlier this year, or, we never know what they do.
I think what's interesting as well is that, the narrative is continuing that this is still a phased return to work for the princess. And so were she to suddenly pop up in her finest gown, more of which in a moment, that would perhaps suggest that things are fully back to normal. So there is that as well.
Yeah, well, her absence, I think, is fine. It's his
William.
absence. It's William not attending. That makes me think, they're going away. They're not going to be anywhere near here. And that's completely fine. But I think the excuse of, he doesn't attend every year, it's a bit like, okay.
So in the interest of balance, he is, as we speak, visiting a school in North London, which is, supporting children in performing arts. And that has a connection to this work. So I think that's the kind of, by way of a slight apology for not going on the day.
He hasn't watched the films again, has he? I know the real reason.
You can watch him when he goes on holiday.
He hasn't watched Conclave.
That's a really good one, though. Sorry.
Such a good one.
Sorry.
Can this become a film podcast? Yeah. We're going through all the motions.
Maybe we need to do a bonus episode.
Exactly.
BAFTA special. Well, I must say, I do sympathise with him a small amount because it's quite hard packing in a load of films if you've got young kids. And
I thought you were going to sympathise over half term, and I'm like, you and me have to book clubs. We have to like run around London.
what half term?
Exactly, what half term? What family time?
Yeah.
Oh, poor kids. Ours, not theirs.
Gosh.
Maybe
Shall
we
we-
can take ours with him.
I know. Yeah. Well, please, if there is any room in that little jet. Right. Let's talk fashion because we have been kind of like hinting at it now for a while. What has gone on this week? Because we had this discussion last week about this weird statement coming out again about Kate's fashion, which
Well, it wasn't. It was like a news report.
it was a new report which didn't quite make sense because it wasn't anything new. We'd heard it back in 2022, but we were like, why is this coming out again? But then this week we had clarification.
It was a clarification of sorts, wasn't it? And I think that's because a lot of people took last week's report, which was that the Kensington Palace would no longer be briefing on her outfits. And they ran with it a bit and they said, the princess has said she will no longer, or the princess is refusing to. And it became a bit personal. And so there was a clarification from Kensington Palace this week saying that actually this wasn't her saying this. It was them reiterating the fact that they didn't generally give out clothing
IDs,
details.
what we call ID.
As we
yeah.
discussed, I mean, BAFTAs would have caused them a bit of a headache, right? Because that's a big red carpet moment where people want to know what she's wearing.
I've got to say though, what an unusual statement from Kensington Palace, because they don't normally comment on things like that, and it's actually quite a. I mean, it's not a passionate statement, but it's not as dry as they usually are either. It's very. So why?
I think
Why is that?
I think it was purely to clarify because I think that people were running with it. We talked about it in the episode last week about the fact that this wasn't new and actually that nothing has changed policy-wise. So I think it was this very much underlining that because the story has taken on legs and gone around the world.
It actually became more of a thing.
But what I'm thinking though is that it must have hit a bit of a nerve because they broke the whole "don't explain, don't complain" thing that's got them through so much. Like it's like someone got annoyed somewhere. I think
you could be right.
I think Catherine doesn't like words being put in her mouth.
Well, no one would.
So I think she'd just nip it in the bud.
Yeah, but
And to be honest, it's probably the best thing to do because then there's no more conversation.
Recollections may vary.
Except that we're still talking about it.
Yeah, we're still talking about it. Okay,
Yeah,
we won't talk about it.
We'll let it go, KP.
Yeah,
we'll let it go.
We'll let it go.
We'll let it go, princess.
Now, we talked about it in the intro. We're taking a break next week, but not much.
Are we there?
Yeah, a break. Not much is happening, and not even in the royal front, because yes, the king and queen don't have young children, but they're also not expected to be seen much in the next week or so.
Yeah, I think it's a natural pause, isn't it? There's always a lot going on, so never say never, but it's generally taken that you have a moment's breather.
Yeah.
Can I have a moment's pause?
No, not yet.
Who do you think you are? So there isn't a huge amount in the diary, but royal stories rumble on always, and you may have seen some reporting this week around the Duke of York. Unfortunately, things don't look like they're getting any better for him anytime soon.
Not even for his daughter, Princess Eugenie.
Oh, sorry, I actually don't. What's the deal with this?
So there's been a bit more digging into his financial status, and this is directly, I think, as a result of the whole Royal Lodge situation. We talked about the fact that he'd found the funding to stay there.
Oh,
naturally,
we talked about that because I think we were like, but where from?
Well, naturally, people are digging and trying to find out. And it seems that he has done a deal with a Dutch organisation based on what he did for Pitch at the Palace. So in a nutshell, it was a bit like Dragon's Den for entrepreneurs. They would be brought together with investors and they'd make their pitch and then perhaps receive investment in their products or in their ideas. And this was a really successful thing for Prince Andrew while he was still a senior working royal, and it's something that he took international as well. So he built up an extensive network of contacts doing this in different countries, and it seems that he's done a deal with the Dutch company to kind of sell on those networks, and this is what has generated potentially the money for Royal Lodge. The question mark now is, though, over some of the people involved in those deals and whether they had connections to the alleged Chinese spy. And as you say, unfortunately, this week, Princess Eugenie's been linked to it because she attended an event at her father's request while she was on a visit to Tokyo, unrelated to this, at the end of last year. And it's really the last thing that she or her sister needs. We've said this a million times before. They're lovely girls. They have had to put up with a lot in the public eye. And, you know, they want to support their father, you know, despite everything that's happened. They have been there. I've written about this in the magazine, the fact that they sort of take turns to go and visit him at weekends. They obviously are very concerned for him. But this is not the headline anyone wanted to see.
We did say it wasn't going to go away in 2025, and it's already started. Like, it
Would
needs
he have
to go
known
on.
that he was putting her in a situation there in Tokyo?
I don't think a parent.
I don't think anyone sets out
Yeah.
to do that, do they, to their child?
No,
I think that, yeah.
And now
and
he's paying for the consequences, but no, you know, he probably saw no harm in that.
Well, I think we need to make clear as well, they haven't done anything wrong here, okay? This is nobody's done anything wrong. The concern here is in relation to the alleged Chinese spy.
Yeah.
And Andrew has said throughout that he wasn't aware and he cut ties with Yang Tongbo when it was brought to his attention. But as you say, it's this sort of slight whiff of scandal around him that doesn't seem to be going away.
It's not going away.
It's just always something new popping up. God.
Wow, that's been a...
On that
note, I thought we could end it with a little announcement.
Wow.
Well, our listeners love a big announcement, whether it's like wedding related or baby. So I thought, Emmy, you might want to make an announcement to our lovely listeners. Well, I wasn't.
Yeah. If anyone on YouTube's noticed the shirt's getting looser,
We're having a baby.
We're having a right royal baby.
A right royal baby.
Yeah, maybe not a royal baby, a hello baby.
A hello
so,
baby.
So if anyone wants to send a baby grow, DM me.
We need to get on
in
branded.
touch.
I know.
Yeah, we do.
On that note, Emily.
that really ended at things on a high.
Yeah, you were like,
pulled
what?
You pulled that out of the bag. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you
Congratulations.
guys. Yeah,
Right, on that note, let's take a nice break and come back with extra energy and more stories.
See you in March.
See you then.
And that's everything from us today. Thank you so much to Emily and to you two for joining us. We'll be back in March.
In the meantime, get more from Hello with our entertainment podcast, The Daily Lowdown, available on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.